Yeah, good morning, everybody. Glad you're here. Yeah, my name is Eric, and excited to be able to share the scriptures today. If you have a Bible, you want to open it to, where are we going? Oh, we're going to Matthew chapter 4. That took me a second to remember. It all blends together sometime. Matthew chapter 4 is where we're going to be in a few minutes, and I just appreciate what Julie had to say. And just, I would say, as your pastor, on behalf of our leadership, it is an opportunity right now that we really want to have you pray about before you leave today. What would it look like for me to respond to the invitation? And it might look like things are smooth and everything's perfect and all of our teams are well staffed. But if you talk to anybody who's serving in the trenches right now, in that way, they would tell you that that's not the case. And we want our church to be sustainable. And so when we say 100 people, we mean that. So please take that sincerely to heart and to prayer. And we'd love to have you to say yes to that. So the series is called Follow. And it's an invitation that Jesus makes for us to follow him. And we've been asking the question in this series, what does it really look like to follow Jesus? Every week there's a question we're answering. So 2 weeks ago we started, and the question was, who's invited to follow Jesus? We started there. And do you remember the answer? The answer is everybody. Yeah, it's an easy answer. Nobody's excluded. No matter who you are, no matter what you've done, you're invited to follow Jesus. Week 2 was last Sunday. We asked the question, what's the price required to follow Jesus? And I think Heather mentioned a moment ago, what we discovered was while saying yes to Jesus cost you nothing, it's a gift that he gives us. He paid the price for it. Ultimately, following Jesus will cost you everything. It is a sacrificial, self-denying, cross-carrying, others-centered, Jesus-focused life. And that comes at a price. And I agree with what Heather said. It is without a doubt worth the price. But don't be fooled. It will cost you everything. Today I want to answer the question, how good do I have to be to follow Jesus?
Just good enough.
So we're going to have some fun with that. So I hope you'll play along with me this morning because, if not, it's going to be an awkward little opener. So you ready to play along?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to need your help. I'm curious, how many of you here would say that generally, you're a good person? Any good people in the room? I need a show of hands. We're going to do some hand raising and raise them high so everybody can see. Yeah, good. And just to be clear, you have two options. You're a good person, you're a bad person. So if your hand's not up, we know who you are. Let me ask again. How many of you are good, generally good people? Okay, that's better. Good. Let me just push it a little bit. How many of you say, I'm probably better than like the average person. I would be like in the top 50% of people. Anybody besides me? You guys are lying. Statistically, most of us, if we're asked anonymously, would say we're in the top 50+%. So I'm going to ask again. I'm looking for honesty, not humility, false humility, by the way. How many of you think, I'm probably in the top, I work with knuckleheads. I go to school. Those people are crazy. My neighborhood, those HOA people, out of their minds. I am better than 50% probably. Anybody want to join me? Okay, now a little bit more honesty. I appreciate that. Can I push it to top 25? Can we go that far?
Not that good.
Look around. Do you think you're better than 50% of the people in this room? Anybody want to put a hand up on that one? I think of myself, you might have your opinion about me, but I think of myself as generally a good pastor. No, really, it's okay. No, thank you. And, no, I'm just kidding. No, I do. I'm a pretty good pastor, and 50%, I don't know, maybe. And then a couple weeks ago, I got invited to go to this pastors gathering down in Liberty Lake, and so there's 20 or so lead pastors from the inland Northwest, and I only knew probably 8 of them, so there's 12 guys I'd never met before. So I'm in this living room at this home, and we're having this awesome presentation. Somebody was there to just challenge us with what it means to lead during the season of culture that we're in, and then we had lunch together. And I spent 4 hours with this incredible group of solid leaders, men of God. They're leading great churches. Their hearts are pure. And churches I had never even knew existed in this area. And they're just doing so many great things. And I got in my car to drive home. And I just thought to myself, I don't know if I'm as good of a pastor as I thought I was. Shouldn't have gone to lunch, right? We talk a lot about being good people, about being a good person. You probably have said before, I'm a good person. You've heard people say, I'm a good person. And a lot of times we say that when it relates to spirituality, and because it's a way that we talk about it as if it earns us something. And I just want to kind of throw a flag on the play for a moment and ask some really obvious, important questions. Like, you're a good person. Okay, so how good is good enough? I mean, seriously, if there's a good person, that means that there must also be a bad person, and somewhere between that bad person and good person apparently is a line, and when you're on this side of the line, you're good. So let me ask, where precisely is the line? Because apparently that line matters when we talk about how good we are. So how good is good enough? And by the way, good compared to who? Right? I'm better than most pastors. I'm not like that, that power-hungry, abusive, blah, blah, blah pastor down the road, or, is that the standard? Compared to who? And then lastly, who gets to decide who's good? You? I know what you'll say. Me? I know what I'll say. Social media, culture? I want to talk about that today. How good do I really have to be to follow Jesus? In Matthew chapter 4, Jesus, he's just getting started in his ministry. He's a rabbi. He's beginning to gather followers, disciples, which every rabbi would do, and he has yet to do so. And so in this verse we're going to read today, are these verses, Jesus calls his very first disciples, and I think there's a good lesson for us as we think about, like, who are we and what do we bring to the table? Matthew chapter 4, I think it's verse 18 is where we'll start. It says, one day as Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, also called Peter, and Andrew, throwing a net into the water, for they fished for a living. Jesus called out to them, come, follow me, and I'll show you how to fish for people. I just love that, by the way, that Jesus speaks right into their world, right? He uses language that they know. They're fishermen. He uses a fishing analogy. That's just a good invitation. Come, follow me. I'll teach you how to fish for people. The text said so, but let me just remind us. Peter and Andrew were not like religious elites who had the day off and decided to spend the day fishing to kill some time. No, they were commercial fishermen. They fished for a living, 6 days a week, sun up to sundown, probably even beforehand. Long, back-breaking, grueling days. They had received education in the religious system. All young men in Judaism would have been trained, starting around maybe age 5 or 6. Boys would go into religious training school, and you would stay in that up till about age 10. And around age 10, there was a decision that had to be made. Do you continue on in your religious studies? And if you showed promise, you would. Or do you shift and focus more on a trade? And a lot of times, your trade would be that of your parents, and you would follow in your parents, or if your dad had a business or you're a young man, you would follow in your dad's business. And so around the age 10, someone decided that Peter and Andrew weren't good enough to continue on in their education, and so they shifted over to fishing with dad. And that became their life. And so when Jesus calls them to follow him, it wasn't because of their religious training and their background, that they were the top of the class, that they knew all the ins and outs of how to apply Jewish law to current culture. They had none of that to offer. When Jesus called them, he also didn't call them because he wanted to fish for people and he needed really good fishermen. By the way, Peter and Andrew, lousy fishermen. Seriously, read the story of the Bible. Every time you read about them fishing, they catch nothing. I mean, constantly empty nets, tough line of work for them to be in. The only time they catch fish is when Jesus shows up and tells them what to do, and they do it, and then suddenly they catch all kinds of fish. So it wasn't their fishing skills that Jesus needed either. They didn't have religious training. They weren't even good fishermen. And yet Jesus calls them to follow him all the same. And when he calls, look what happens. They left their nets at once, just like that, and followed him. He cast a vision, a greater vision than the life they were living. Follow me. I'll teach you how to catch people. They're like, well, catching something's better than nothing. We're in. And they walk away from their livelihood, from their career, from the family business, from what mom and dad had taught them. They walk away from the only way that they knew how to make money, what little physical possessions they have, and they follow Jesus. So here they are, following Jesus along the Sea of Galilee. They don't make it very far down the beach, and we get to verse 21. It says a little farther up the shore, Jesus saw two other brothers, James and John, sitting in a boat with their father Zebedee, repairing their nets. And he called to them to come too. And they immediately followed him, leaving the boat and their father behind. So a very similar story. James and John maybe had even been business partners or had done some relationship with Peter and Andrew. They knew each other. They were fishing the same area. I think their story was probably the same as Peter and Andrew around age 10. They didn't make the cut either. They weren't quite good enough to keep advancing through the system. And so they found themselves working with Dad, Zebedee, on the boats, repairing nets, fishing for a living. And Jesus comes along and he sees them and he says, I want you to follow me. And immediately, it says, they drop their nets, they leave the boat, they leave everything. They're like, see you, Dad, and they're out. Like, good luck. Hope you tell Mom we love her. We'll come back at her birthday. We're out. We're following Jesus. And they go, and they begin to follow this new rabbi that they had heard so many things about. What I love about this story is this, sometimes it's like you have to read what's not there. Did you notice that there's no time at all, there's no recording where Peter, Andrew, James, or John ever questioned whether or not they were qualified to follow Jesus? Like, they weren't like, does he want us to follow? Like, does he know? Jesus, do you know who we are? We're like dropouts. We got kicked out of the program. We don't have a lot to, there's no recording of that whatsoever. He calls and they just follow. So easy for us to disqualify ourselves, isn't it? I thought about Moses in the Old Testament story, Exodus chapter 1, 2, and 3. Moses, who had grown up in Pharaoh's house in Egypt, as an adopted son of Pharaoh's daughter, ends up finding himself in a bit of trouble, has to flee to save his own life, and after years in the wilderness taking care of sheep, forgotten kind of by society, God shows up in the form of a burning bush and says to Moses, Moses, I've heard the cries of my people, and I'm sending you back to Egypt to Pharaoh to demand that Pharaoh let my people go. And I don't know if you remember or have heard the first question that comes out of Moses' mouth. He says, who am I? Who am I, God, to go to Pharaoh? Who am I to go back to Egypt? Who am I to lead your people? I'm not qualified. And I love God's response. I mean, these are my words, not the Bible, so it's a little bit of a paraphrase. I'm having some fun with it. But basically, if you read the story, God says, oh yeah, it's a good question. Who am I? By the way, you're nobody, Moses. Bro, you're a shepherd in the middle of nowhere. You hang out with sheep all day. Like, no one's talking about you. Your name is not on the tip of anybody's tongue. It's never about you. It's about me. It's about what I'm going to do. And if you read the rest of the story of Moses' call, I think it's like 5 or 6 times at some point God says, I will be with you. I will go before you. I will lead you. It's never about you, Moses. It's about what I'm going to do in this moment. But man, it is so easy for you and I to disqualify ourselves. I don't think I have what it takes. And there's 2 ways I thought we disqualify ourselves. If you like to take notes, you can write these down. Number 1 is we think our past disqualifies us. I got a past. And I dropped out of high school. Spent time in prison. Spent years of my life addicted. I blew up my marriages. Kids won't talk to me. I made bad choices. I've said things and done things and hurt people that I never should have done or said or hurt. I've broken trust in ways I can't rebuild. I've taken things from people I can't give back. I've got a past. I can't possibly do anything good for God. I'm just curious. Anybody here have a past you're not proud of? Just a show of hands. If you're comfortable with a hand up, come on. Of course you do. That makes you human. And if the only people that can follow Jesus are people without a past, you know what you've got? You've got Jesus and you got the rest of us, don't you? That's all you've got. The team of one who's actually got it going on, and all of us. Like, Your past does not disqualify. If anything, it qualifies you to be used by God. Is that not the case you found in your life? God uses the very things where we're broken the most when we've been healed and are whole. And he uses that often to minister and bless other people. So we think our past disqualifies us. Secondly, we think our performance disqualifies us. So we just look at who we are today and we're like, I don't know. I just don't think I've got it going on. I don't have enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not old enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not fast enough. I'm not educated enough. I'm not passionate enough. I'm not gifted enough. Call somebody else. I don't have enough of whatever it is. And what we need to discover is the same thing that Moses discovered, that it's not about what you and I bring to the party. It's about the person inviting us to the party. God says, I'm just asking you to say yes, and if you'll say yes, I'll take care of all that other stuff. And by the way, I don't need what you bring anyway, Eric. And you only have it because I gave it to you. So can we just remember what the priority is here? That's why I love the response of our first disciples. Verse 20 talks about Peter and Andrew. It says they left their nets at once and followed. They immediately, James and John, followed him, leaving the boat and their father behind. They didn't waste any time. And here's how it worked. It was like they took their first step in following Jesus. And as they stepped out to follow, the process of transformation began in their lives and they began to change. Jesus didn't change them while they're in their boats, get them all cleaned up and say, okay, now that you've got your act together, come follow me. No, he called them, they said yes, and instantaneously they began the process of Jesus transforming their hearts, their minds, and their spirit. That's what he does. He calls us, and he qualifies us. I heard somebody once say, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies those he calls. He gives us what we need. And our job is just to say yes in that moment and begin to follow. So following Jesus isn't about earning my place by being good enough. Following Jesus is simply about receiving his grace and living in that. And that is so hard for you and I to do because everything about life teaches us the opposite. I mean, you go to work and you got to earn it. You go to school, you get grades, you got to earn it. You're on the athletic field, you got to earn it. Like life, childhood teaches us this. It's about performance and what we've got to do. Anybody remember those days when you were younger playing maybe on the playground at recess or on the weekend at the ball field nearby and a bunch of kids are there and you kind of form this kind of impromptu game of kickball? And you're going to play kickball, and so somebody's got to be the captain. So two people get chosen to be captains, and everybody else stands in a line while the two captains pick. Remember that horrifying day from your childhood? It's like traumatic. We're all like seeing therapists about it, right? Like, who are you going to pick for your team? And you may not know this by looking at me, but I haven't always been the athletic specimen that I am today. Matter of fact, when I was in grade school, there was a season of my life where I was overweight, quite a bit overweight, and I also had a car wreck accident that had a skull fracture. Just so a lot of circumstances kind of came together where I just wasn't as physically active as I had been before, and so there I am during that season. I can remember it. Maybe some of you do too, and you're standing there, and they start picking teams, and there's me in 8, then there's me in 7, 6, 5, 4. And you get down to the bottom and you don't want to be too desperate. That's not cool. Like Billy's over there going, pick me. You're like, chill out, Billy. That doesn't look good on you, man. Like not, so you act like you don't care. But nobody wants the overweight slow kid for their kickball team. Who would pick him? What rabbi would pick fishermen? What do they have to offer? No, if you're a rabbi, you pick the best, the brightest, the top of the class, the rising stars. You call the educators in the religious system, you find out like who's showing promise. I want them on my team. And then Jesus comes along and says, no. I'll take 2 fishermen from this boat. I'll take those 2 fishermen. And together we'll do something profound in this world. It reminds me of what the Apostle Paul said, First Corinthians chapter 1. these words that I just think apply. I mean, they apply so well to me, and I bet you can relate too. He says in verse 26, he says, remember, dear brothers and sisters, that few of you were wise in the world's eyes or powerful or wealthy when God called you. He's like, you didn't have money, you didn't have power, you didn't have smarts when God called you. Instead, God chose things the world considers foolish in order to shame those who think that they're wise. He chose things that are powerless to shame those who are powerful. God chose things despised by the world, things counted as nothing at all, and used them to bring to nothing what the world considers important. And as a result, no one can ever boast in the presence of God. Isn't that encouraging? God takes the foolish things in the eyes of the world and he shames the wise. He takes the weak and he flips it on its head over those that think that they're powerful. He takes those that the world would say you're nothing, and he changes the world with them. In 1837, a little boy was born. His parents named him D.L. Moody. He was the sixth of 9 kids, big family. And he had a tough childhood. When he was 4 years old, his dad died, and suddenly his mom found herself raising 9 kids on her own. Very, very tough situation. As you can imagine, it immediately thrust his family into abject poverty during a very difficult time. He continued in school until the 5th grade when he realized it was actually more advantageous for him to quit school and work the family farm to try to help the family make money and support mom as best he could. And so he did that. And all throughout what normally would have been his high school years, he just worked, never went back to school. Until he was 17, he decided that he needed to do something better. He needed to find a better way to make money for his family. So he moved to Chicago, where his uncle owned a shoe store, and he began to sell shoes as a shoe salesman. Seashells by the seashore. He began to sell shoes through his uncle's shoe store. That's the first time it happened all day today. About a year later, he was around 18. One day, a man from his uncle's church came to the store to buy some shoes, and he ended up sharing the good news of Jesus with DL. And apparently in the storeroom of the shoe store, DL made a decision to give his life to Jesus Christ, to turn from his past and to trust his future to Jesus. And it changed his life. I mean, he was just a new young man, and he was so excited about his faith. And, his uncle had been taking him to church from time to time, and so he decided to plug in there. So he goes to church with his uncle, and he hears about this thing called church membership. And so D.L. Moody applies to become a member of his church, now that he's a Christian. And his membership application was rejected because he didn't have enough Bible knowledge. We all look back, go, suckers, like little did they know, right? It didn't faze him. He just kept serving, kept going to church, growing in his faith. And over the next couple of years, he began to develop a passion and a concern for some of the younger, troubled kids in Chicago who didn't have a whole lot of resources. And he had grown up in that world and knew how hard it was. And so he began a Sunday school. He found an old abandoned saloon in downtown Chicago, and they began to use that as their base for their Sunday school. And he would just invite kids on Sundays to come, and this ministry began to grow, and leaders began to come, and it became this incredible, thriving ministry. Eventually, that Sunday school became a church, and D.L. Moody was appointed as the pastor of that church. Eventually, that church became known as Moody Bible Church in Chicago, and eventually Moody Bible Church started what we know as Moody Bible College. He would go on to become, D.L. Moody, one of the most well-known and impactful evangelists of his generation, church leaders and authors. And some would say that, just an estimate, that in his lifetime, he shared the good news of Jesus Christ with over 1 million people. Just for perspective, by the way, that's pre-internet. It's not a big deal today, but back then, it's pre-TV. It's pre-radio. He was used by God in such incredible ways. And one day he described his life this way. He said, I am only one, but I am one. I can't do everything, but I can do something. And he's made himself available for God to take the foolish things of the world and to shame the wise. That's what God does. Takes those that the world might consider nothing, not good enough, and he does something great with them. He takes lousy fishermen and he turns them into world changers. He takes uneducated shoe salesmen and turns them into world changers. If you're serious about following Jesus, at some point you're going to have your own, what I'll just call, drop your net moment. Maybe you've already had it. Maybe you'll have another one. A drop your net moment. It's that moment where you realize that you might have to let go of the very thing that you think qualifies you in life. And it might be your career, might be your success, might be the name or reputation you have. There could be some gifts you have, your finances, who knows what it could be, but there's something that you're holding on to, and Jesus will say to you in a fresh way, come follow me, and you'll have to decide, will I let it go and trust that he doesn't need what I think I have anyway? He just wants me. And if I'll just take that step to begin following, he'll begin the transforming work that I need desperately in my life. I mean, I've been walking with Jesus for coming up on 50 years soon. And I have found that that is not a one and done thing. You don't just let it go, drop your nets once, because what happens is when nobody's looking, what do? We pick them back up. We carry them because they're secure and they're safe and they're what we know. Am I willing to drop my nets, to leave it all, and follow after Jesus? So the question is, how good do I have to be to follow Jesus? And the answer to that particular question, if you're asking, is you'll never be good enough. You can't be. Only one's good enough, and that's Jesus himself. And so rather than asking the question, how good do I have to be to follow Jesus, I would recommend that we would instead ask this question, am I willing to trust the goodness of Jesus as enough? Am I willing to allow the goodness of Jesus to be enough? Because when I say yes to Jesus and I give my life to follow him, and I turn from my life of sin, I turn from my past, and I turn from my own self-sufficiency and my own goodness, and I trust in his, he fills my heart with all that he is. My life has changed. And when God looks at me, he doesn't see my goodness or my badness or my sin or my brokenness. You know what he sees? He sees the goodness of Jesus in me. And he can see the goodness of Jesus in you. And he says, that's enough. That's enough. And as you follow me, and I'll do more with you, filled by my Spirit, than you could ever do with that which you were holding on to before you met me. And so I want to pray that over us today. If you would just go into an attitude of prayer with me. I just have two simple questions for you. The first is, if you're here today and you've been trusting in your own goodness, your own righteousness, your own attempts, I hope you're hearing today that as much as you are loved and we see the incredible things inside of you, you'll never be good enough by yourself. That's why Jesus died for you. And if today you'll just acknowledge that, say, I can't keep trying, asserting myself. Instead, I need to take a knee in humility before God, acknowledge my sin and brokenness, and ask him to give me the gift of forgiveness and new life through his son. And if you'll ask for that today, I'm telling you, in an instant, the Holy Spirit will enter into your life. Your life will be gone. Your new life will come. You'll be a new creation. And Christ's light will shine through you. It's the greatest decision you'll ever make. And it's the beginning of a full life in Christ. And if that's you today, I want to remember you as I pray, and I would invite you right now, if that's you, to, as many have done in our previous gatherings today, just to lift a hand to heaven, to say, God, that's me. I want the gift of forgiveness and new life through your son, Jesus Christ. Awesome. That's great. Like, he knows exactly what your hand's up for. He knows what's going on in your heart. And he's going to meet you in this moment. Love that. Then I would ask, if you're here today and you realize that there's something you're holding on to that might be getting in the way of you fully surrendering and following after Jesus. And today's the day for you to drop your net. I want to ask you, as I pray, just to verbalize that to God. Name it. that thing that maybe you're putting more pride in than you should, or assurance or trust in. Just label it, name it, give it to him as I pray. You can speak it quietly, you can say it out loud, whatever you need to do to acknowledge this moment. And instead of trusting in yourself, to trust in his goodness. Jesus, thank you so much for the call you gave to 4 fishermen. 4 people that I think all of us here have some connection with, we can relate to, feeling like we haven't quite attained the level that we wanted to in life, or maybe we're not quite as good as we hope to be or as good as other people are. And I just pray today, God, we would be overwhelmed with a reminder that we are in you enough. We thank you for the gift of your son, Jesus, the transforming work that happens in us. And I pray that we as a community would simply do what we're asked to do, which is to take a step in following you. And as we move out, you will continue to do your transforming work in us. I celebrate those today that are giving their lives to you, Jesus, and beginning this fresh journey with you, front and center in their life. And I just pray you would help us to come alongside one another in that way, and so we can grow and experience all that you call us to. And for those of us that are laying something down, may we, by the power of your Spirit, be able to not pick it back up, but to keep our trust, our focus, and our strength in you alone. Thank you for being enough for us, God. Thank you for loving us for who we are, not for what we do. For this, we're so grateful. God, we pray all of us today, as always, in the strong and mighty name of your son, Jesus Christ. And everybody said, amen together. Amen. Cedar Hills, can we celebrate with those that are giving their lives to Jesus today? Yeah, love it. If that's a call you're making, there's a card you can fill out to let us know that. We won't have a chance to connect unless you come talk to us afterwards, which I'm available to talk with you, or you let us know on your card. So please take advantage of that. Have a great week, Cedar Hills. God bless you. We'll see you next week.